But
So what was the cabin like? The house, the log where you were born?
I don't remember, but it was a log house,
Okay.
and but there's no buildings or anything there any longer. I think of it often when we drive by there, you know. But then my dad purchased the farm over 80 acres over in another part of the community at Germfast, because some people don't know, was named by, they took the first letter of the original settlers, and that's how they end up with the name of Germfast. And he bought what was the G for Grant, and we just didn't know we had it made. I mean, we had 80 acres to run in. We had a creek running through in the wintertime. We could skate on it. We had hills we could toboggan on. And we had just about anything you want. And, you know, but as kids, we weren't happy and satisfied with that, because the older we got, the more work there was to do.
Oh, I bet.
And but like cleaning the gutter in the barn, that wasn't a whole lot of fun. But
How many cows and stuff did you have?
probably half a dozen, milk them by hand. But it was all pretty good cows, except the one my mother wanted to milk one time, and they kicked her right into the gutter. And my kind and gentle mother went ape on him, and she took a hoe handle and she give him a whooping till that old cow started mooing. But you know, let's see, and we had enough kids we could go out and play baseball. Is one of the things we used to do. We made our own toys, like you take a bicycle rim and a stick and you push it around with that stick, you know.
Right.
And
like you see on TV or in the...
Yeah, and then we had what we called our monkey tree, big bushy maple, and it was monkey tree because we see who could climb up the highest, you know, got guts enough to climb way up top with it moving, the tree moving. And we had all our own beef, we had our own chickens for eggs, we had, of course, milk, and we made our own butter, and we had a garden out there of about an acre, and half of that was corn. But Mother didn't like it when we'd sneak out there and take a salt shaker or something like that and go out and start eating up her fresh tomatoes that was growing. And but there was one thing that we never was allowed to mess with when it come time to plant them, and that was the cabbage. That was Dad's baby, and and it had to be on a rainy day. If it wasn't a rainy day, he wouldn't plant them. I don't know what it was. Maybe he could get them a quick start, but and then we planted them Hubbard squash, and them things were huge. I mean, they was at least a foot through, but we had a lot of fun. Of course, those kids slept upstairs. You know, the stovepipe running up through there of an old barrel stove would heat the upstairs. But we cheated a little bit because you could see down through the crack beside the stovepipe. And Mom and Dad was wrapping up presents at Christmas time. We'd peek through that crack and see what they was wrapping up. And But it wasn't all dull. We used to tease Mom because we said, tell her that we never had to go away from home to fight. She always agreed with us.
Yeah.
But we used to play tricks on each other, and I don't remember who was sleeping in last. But what we did is these little tiny bottles of food coloring, about that high. They would sleep, we'd sneak up there, sprinkle it right under their nose. And you know what happens when you do that. They start rubbing it like this.
Uh-huh.
And she said, Ma said, they're going to be mad. But she didn't stop us. Finally, they come down. And one of them looked at the other one and he said, look at you. And the other said, look at you. Oh, then they found out what happened. They was mad, but it was too late. We already had them, And then one time, we'd argue over who got to go out and get the mail when the mailman came by. Well, that's one time we was arguing over it. Ma said, it's David's birthday. Let him go get it. Well, when he's gone out to get it, feeling like a real strutting out there because he got it, my mother said, get behind the door, and when he comes in, you get him down and give him a birthday spanking. My mother had a sense of humor, and we did. And he wasn't happy about that either. And another thing happened, Mom and Dad.
Sam, I'm going to stop you right there just a second, Dad. I just want to check and make sure this is recording okay.
I don't know where I left
We're going
off.
back again. Yep. We left off the post office and Uncle Dave going to the post office. He spanked him. And
Oh, no, not the post office, the mailbox.
or the mailbox, I mean, yeah.
We give him a birthday spanking. That was the last one.
Yeah.
If I start repeating one, let me know.
Yeah, I will.
But I was trying to think what else we did as youngster. Oh, my grandpa, Mom's dad, and he had a little cabin right next to our house. Now, his only child was my mother, and he was extremely prejudiced towards girls. He didn't think the boys were worth much and stuff like that. One day, Ma and Dad was gone, and he was particularly obnoxious to us boys and stuff like this. So we went up to the orchard, got a couple of small pails full of apples, and when he started in on us again, we just started pelting his cabin with those apples. And he was cussing and swearing, ripping and tearing. But we kept going till that. And then when Ma come home, we knew we might be in trouble. But Ma told him, he said, say, if you treat them like you do the girls, you wouldn't have no trouble at all. And she didn't. She told us we shouldn't have, but she understood the reasoning behind it, But we loved Grandpa, and he had this old violin, and he'd play around the vinegar jug, the monkey chased the weasel, and he got down there to where it said pop goes the weasel. He lay the bow down, one little twing, goes the weasel. But I don't know if he ever played anything of
Any substance.
yeah, really. I don't know if he could read one note, but
he wasn't gonna win the fiddle from the devil, and the devil goes down to Georgia.
no, the devil had had him, and no. I remember one time Ma went to crank the old Model A up, you had the crank on the front, and it kicked back and broke her arm.
Oh, geez.
Oh yeah, it kicked back, oh man. But, that was when I was quite small, and, no, I remember one time, Dad was usually the boss of the roost, but one time he did something, I don't know what it was, and my mother let into him and let him know he didn't do that again, and stuff like that, boy, she just,
Was that,
she ripped him good.
was that the time he took you to the woodshed?
No, well, I don't know which one of us was that was,
Oh,
but he was, but Dad could have an awful temper. And
that's hard to believe, being a
Oh.
Livermore.
when he lost it, it was, but, there was times though, when the twins were born in 49, well, us younger kids went to youth group, and we ended up staying overnight at the preacher's house because Ma was in the hospital with having a pair of twins.
Right.
And when Dad come home, he was in such a great mood. He had a great big old brown paper sack full of all kinds of candy bars, he's was all celebrating, and stuff like that, And, no, my mother had said when she was young that she wouldn't have just one child. And she had 12.
Well, she was an only child, wasn't she?
She was an only child, and she didn't like that. But,
Wasn't she raised in the logging camps, you said?
she was raised in the log camp. She worked in the in the cookhouse and stuff like that. But some of the stories we heard about Grandpa, and they called him Birdie, and he was sort of wanted to be the boss of the group he was playing with, and he'd always say, "Birdie, go first." Well, they had this slide down the bank where they slid the logs down into the river, and they got a big piece of bark, and they figured, if they go sliding down there, just before they hit the river, they bail out, off that doggone bark. He didn't bail out fast enough. He went right into the river.
Birdie went first, eh?
Birdie went first. Another the time they was up at the top of some stairs, and they wondered what it'd be like if you got in a basket and slid down the stairs. Birdie go first. It didn't slide. He went end over end down there. Birdie was the only one to go on that one, I'm sure.
Sounds like Birdie probably bounced his head off a lot of stuff in the process.
But no, they was good times. But and then Frank and Francis was out playing with an axe at the wood pile. Ma just had, I think, Steve, so she was laid up a little bit, and they was out of cutting wood, and they cut Fran's finger off. It was cut it off. Ma picked up the piece of finger, wrapped it in a white cloth, and run to the hospital, Manistee, and they sewed it back on.
No kidding.
Yep, and worked out all right, I guess. But no, we used. Let's see, get into.
How about your calf sales?
Honey, don't talk to us, please.
No.
And I had one teacher, Mrs. Bro, Ruth Bro. I loved her dearly, so much that that's where her birthday was what we set our wedding date on. Our anniversary was on her birthday. Well, she was kind to the kids. She could crack the whip, but every week, I think on a Friday, they'd have a candy sale. And kids would bring in their little dimes, nickels, whatever, and buy some candy. But there was always some kids that didn't have it, including our family.
Right.
And Miss Burrow had the fifth grade, so I was about 10. But she'd go buy a bunch of candy and go around and give each kid that didn't have candy, give them a piece of candy. And I really liked that, Like I say, she could crack the whip. And she had two of the boys one time, I don't know what they got into. And I had to stay in to do some homework or do some kind of schoolwork. And she had them two boys in there. What sin they'd committed, I don't know, but I sure don't want part of it. And because then they'd give you some punishment. She had rubber hose about a foot long, and she made them give each other a spanking with that hose. And if you don't give it with enough energy, and then I'll do it again. So they had to whoop each other. She had no more trouble with them boys.
Can you imagine doing that today?
Oh, God. First stop would be the lawyer.
Uh-huh.
And, well, I had an interesting situation up here. This is jumping ahead a ways, but since we're talking about that, I'll put it in there. My eldest son wasn't getting all his homework done.
That's a shock.
And they were going to take him to the woodshed, And I went up there, and it was Larry Wise and Wilcoxon.
I remember that.
And they had not told me anything about the trouble he was having with that. And we had a discussion. Of course, my voice was raised a little bit. I threatened to whip the whole bunch of them, and I said, if this ever happens again, next time I'm coming up here angry. But it never happened again. And I was ready. If they would, I would probably become violent had they reached over and got a hold of me. But they didn't. I and Mr. Wilcoxon just didn't get along on a lot of things.
You weren't alone.
And I didn't make it through high school. But when my boys started getting a little older, I said, hell, I got to do something. They can't get through high school before I do something. So I went and did my GED and got that. They say you only have to get up to 50%, and I had like 67% and stuff like that.
I remember that, actually. I was really young, but...
Well, I'd go over there to the junior high down there at Lincoln, and I'd go over there a little early, and I'd shoot baskets for half an hour before.
Mom, did you know that?
Yeah. Well,
Eventually I did.
but I started out, one of the classes I had was English. Well, she's a cute little lady, but she thought English was Jesus. So I switched to grammar on old man, and he was cool. And I got in good favor with him because nobody could pronounce the premier of China at that time. Can anybody say that name? I raised my hand, and I quoted it just the way it was. Mao Zedong. Oh, he was all happy with that. But it was for grammar, and it wasn't English. I didn't want to get in there with all them verbs and adverbs and adjectives, and I never did get along with them. And no, I got through there and got that. I still got that paper here somewhere. But it was just satisfaction of saying I did it. But Then I went to work at Ipsy State there. And I went out one day, my brother Steve's team was practicing out behind the state hospital. And I went out there and I wasn't on team, but I was practicing. They couldn't get me out, so they invited me to join the team. And so, well, I probably in slow pitch, I probably had a batting average around 600. But I played for the church. I played some fast pitch.
Okay.
And oh man, that was fun. I was only batted about 400 on that. That was different. That's a little more difficult. We only had one game there. That I got a single, and there was nobody covering second base. I got there and I looked around. The pitcher had covered first base on the play, but there was nobody covering second base. So when he got about halfway back to the pitcher's mound, I just took off. Went into second base. I made it to second base. I stole second base on him. And, he's mad as heck. But I think we had a little short guy. He was an airplane pilot. And he could pitch. He pitched no hitter game. And then we got in a tournament. And this big black guy, probably about 6'2" and about 240, 50 pounds, was up bat. I'm playing first base. I'm down there in my hunch, and he hit that thing before I could even move my hand. The ball was in the glove. He hit that thing like a 30-30 coming down through there. He was out before he could ever finish his swing almost. But, whoo, that was scary. I'm glad he didn't have it 2 feet higher. But them was good times. And I still got the first baseman's mitt that I got before you were born.
Yeah, I think
I still got it out there.
I think it's the same one I used when we played.
Oh, yeah. When you played first base, anyway.
Yeah, which is rare, but yeah.
It's going to take another whole session when I get talking about Little League.
Well, yeah. And actually, we're not going to go too long today because I want to get back and get it on the computer and make sure the sound is right and stuff. But once it's downloaded, but we had to get it started so I could figure out what was going on with it. So.
What I want to do is take through the incidents I had with you, then with Greg and Nate, and stuff like that. How Greg didn't like to ride the motorcycle with me.
Yeah. Well, and this little thing here is supposed to tie in a thing so I can get Greg. I'm going to stop recording.